Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mesa City Council meeting for June the 28th. We have a couple of other meetings prior to our study session. The first is the Mesa Housing Services Governing Board. The third board member for our meeting is Mr. Ken Davis. Is Mr. Davis with us today? Not. Oh, okay. Well, Mr. Davis is excused, as is Mr. Thompson. Ms. Mickelson, have there been any requests to speak at the beginning of this meeting? Okay, thank you. The first item on our agenda then for this meeting is the approval of minutes from a previous meeting as written. Is there a motion to that effect? And a second? Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The next item is to hear a presentation and discuss updates to the city's housing choice voucher programs. Liz and Mary, good to have you with us.
Morning to the chair and Housing Governing Board members. Not too far long ago, we met with each of you to talk about the housing assistance programs as a requirement of HUD. As you serve as our Board of Commissioners, that's the technical term, but as the council with one housing representative. And we agreed to meet quarterly to highlight the program, to ensure you're aware of all the indicators and where we stand, and allow you to provide us any direction based on that. And we do plan to keep these brief, but if you have any questions along this presentation, we're happy to do that. I have with me Mary Brandon, who's the program manager for the Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Good morning. Our utilization is doing really well. As we had spoke before, we're at 101% for the calendar year, but for the month of May, we're at 100%. VASH is low. We're only at 78% utilized for our VASH vouchers of 191. Currently today, not this presentation, we have 50 available, and we meet with the VA every other month, and we give them our concerns of why we're not getting referrals, why they are not having stable housing. We have a lot that are being evicted or losing their assistance. They're abandoning the units or whatever. So we've been working closely with HUD and the VA, and especially recently, just saying our concerns and what can we do and how can we make the utilization be at 100%. But in the meantime, while those vouchers are available, we're able to assist other families with those vouchers as long as we have a VASH voucher available when we do have a referral. And that's not a problem with our monthly attrition.
Can I ask a question on that? There seems to be a little bit of tension because it's great that we're utilizing 100% of our vouchers. And I know we're usually utilizing 78% of our VASH vouchers, so we can make up the difference with other Section 8 vouchers? Is that it? So we want to house as many veterans as possible, but when we do that, does that decrease our ability to house Section 8 folks?
So if you don't mind, Mary, you can jump in as well. But one of the things we do is we have attrition every month on both sides, whether it be the families in the Housing Choice Voucher or the veterans. So we're able to adjust as to what referrals we're receiving. So if we're not getting enough referrals from the veteran program, we go to our wait list. So our wait list is there to supplement, but we have an average turnover of 15 a month, and so we're able to address that. I think it's important to understand we have a regional initiative that we're doing with veterans. We know there's over 300 veterans on a by name list for all of Maricopa County, so we know the veterans are there and there's a need for it. I think the question is, we've housed all the chronically homeless, as many that are willing to work with our program. And so regionally, we're working together to figure out what's the next step. HUD is meeting with the VA at a different level beyond the public housing authorities to also talk about what changes need to be made to the program to ensure we're housing as many veterans that are on the streets. So I think it just needs some tweaking because we were so successful to house so many veterans that met that chronic definition that now we just need to look at, who do we need to serve next among those homeless veterans. So I want to assure you it's not an issue of lack of veterans at this point, but an issue of coordination. And so that's happening, and we're working very closely with the VA.
So if we want to get 100% of our VASH vouchers utilized, is the challenge more in identifying veterans, or is it finding landlords that are willing to accept the vouchers?
We would say both. So we definitely, part of the issue of having veterans referred to us is this perception that we don't have enough housing in Mesa. We're trying to show that we can provide some incentives and some outreach and build more landlords for the program. So I think it's it really is a combination of both.
Okay.
Okay. Give you an update. We have some new opportunities that HUD does not put out very often to apply for additional vouchers. One of them are called Mainstream. They're targeted to non-elderly disabled. They said you can serve those who are homeless, and you can also serve those who are institutionalized or at risk of being institutionalized for physical disabilities. And the only reason they're in those institutions is because they can't afford housing. So we're looking at targeting about 35 of 50 if we get 50 vouchers for homeless and 15 for those institutionalized. We won't know the award until later this year. The family unification voucher opportunities to serve those families in the Department of Child Safety for the state of Arizona, those families who are at risk of losing their children because they don't have housing or need housing in order to get reunified with their children. And that again won't be announced until much later this year. As part of the discussion around landlords, we are planning to do at least an outreach, at least 10 landlords a month, in which we are going to meet individually with them and just thank them for either working with us or encourage them to work with us if they're not currently in our program. And then also, we've recently conducted a purge of our wait list. We do this periodically, about every 2 years, to keep the most updated wait list. We started with our wait list at about 5,800 in December 2016. We're now down to 2,200, but just know that we did pull about 1,000 of those families, and we've housed almost 400 families since December 2016. So it's a lot of work to do that, and unfortunately, the wait list, you have people who are eligible, and many more who aren't eligible for our program. So about 40% of those that we pull from the wait list are determined to be eligible.
And on our HAP assistance payments, you'll hear us say HAP a lot, but it's housing assistance payments. And a reminder that our funding from HUD is calendar year. And so we, this year, will have $13 million in funding for rents here in Mesa. That is 1.2 million more than last year because we had an increase of our utilization last year, so that gave us the 1.2 million increase this year.
We're going to show you some graphs. These are real indicators for you to know when we're hitting the targets. Here we're looking at expenditures and also when HUD gives us our funds. HUD gives us our funds based on our need, looking back a quarter. So because we're highly utilized, last year we went over 100%, and as Mary said, we got an additional 1.2 million for 2018 based on what we spent in 2017. We are on target at 41% of spending those funds, which we're projecting to be again at 100% by the end of the year.
One thing with utilization is right now we're at 101% for the calendar year. We, at the end of the year, must be at 100 or below. We cannot be over 100%. And because we went into 2018 over the 100%, we have the year to average that back out. So with 1,715 vouchers, which is 20,580 units per year, we cannot go over the 20,580 units in the calendar year. And with this being at 101%, with our attrition, we know that we'll be right on target. But just something for you that would be a red flag is if I was coming in and giving you this report in October and we were at 101%, that would be a red flag saying, hey, wait, you can't be that. You have to be below the 100% or you're going to have to use your admin money.
Mary, I want to make sure I heard you correctly. How many housing units, the $13 million of HAP, that equates to 20,000?
20,500 units per calendar year. That's rent, a monthly payment, I should say. So 20,580 monthly payments make up the 13 million.
Over the course of the year?
Right.
So to find out how many families are being housed, to divide that by...
1,700 families are being housed every month.
Okay, thank you.
And HUD has this funny way of calculating the utilization. We look at either the voucher utilization and/or the funding utilization. I think one of the other things I wanted to highlight is of all our per unit costs, it's about $600 a month, which is far lower than our neighboring jurisdictions, because if you look at our makeup of our program, 60% are seniors or disabled on a fixed income. 74% of those in our program are leased in 1 or 2 bedrooms. A lot of Phoenix, Maricopa County, they tend to have large families, so more larger bedroom sizes. So that tells us the niche of as far as who we're serving, and our wait list matches that. So we're serving much more smaller households, seniors, disabled, because that's who many of our residents are that are coming on our wait list. And so that really impacts how we spend these funds. The last slide here, oh, is this you, Mary? This is our admin. We are at 92% of our administrative costs. We do this on purpose because HUD has every year, we don't know how much HUD is going to take from us on our admin. They have not been giving us our full admin based on their formula. So we're at 76% of what we should be getting. So if we can have those savings in there, it makes sure we're not overspending for those administrative costs with staff. So we're very conservative on that end. And also, I have to commend Mary. She's done a lot of streamlining and cost savings with some of our subcontractors for our inspections, and so we're utilizing our contractors much less.
Thank you, Chair and Housing Governing Board members. That concludes our presentation. We'll come and meet with you again in September and give you an update, and if you have any further questions for us.
Thank you very much. Council, any questions? Yes, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you for your presentation. Going back, the prior slide talked about admin reserve funds.
Yes.
So you're able to keep those monies
Yes.
as a reserve for future spending purposes?
And thank you for saying that. I forgot to mention that. Whatever we don't spend goes into admin reserves. And I will tell you, there's been years that we've had to dip into that. So as much as we can conserve on that, on the years that HUD decides to do deeper cuts, or Congress through their appropriations, we're able to utilize those reserves to cover. And we have, we can project how long we can go with those cuts, and if we have to project if there's any staffing cuts or other type of budget cuts that we have to do. So this gives us some padding to make sure we have ability to plan should HUD cut us further.
Good. Well, thank you for being frugal on that. Thank you.
Mr. Reddy.
Liz, you had mentioned the landlord outreach.
Yes.
What's the retention or there's also, you had mentioned in a previous meeting, an event potentially that you were organizing around landlord outreach. Is that still happening or? Okay.
October 11th, we're planning a landlord fair.
Okay.
And we are going to have some trainers there for them, some legal trainers to help educate them on different parts of the program that we talked about. We're also going to hopefully introduce some incentives there, landlord incentives, because we've applied for some additional grant money for that. So we haven't heard yet, but that's our plan.
Okay, perfect.
And we would love to have you. I know you've indicated
Yeah.
interest to join us. So if any council members, it would really help to demonstrate the support. And we will be introducing programs like our VASH program and some of our homeless programs that we do to let them know the different services and programs we're doing out of the city.
Could we share that? I know I attended Maricopa Association of Governments Human Services Committee, and they were interested in maybe replicating, see how the event goes. So if we can share that with them, so that other cities know, how they can do landlord outreach as well. So
Happy to do that. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Freeman.
Sorry, I just thought of another one. So I've been reading, there's a lot of discussion about rent increases throughout the valley. Has that impacted your ability to deliver?
Very much so, and that's part of the reason we're very careful to maximize our funding. Last year, we did have to dip a little bit into our reserves to exceed our funding, because as what we spend is what we get. And if we can spend a little bit more, that means we'll get more. And it's really going to serve us well this year because, as Mary said, we can't serve any more vouchers, but having that additional 1.2 million will help cover those rental increases. And this past year, we saw tremendous increases in rents. And the landlords can do that at lease renewal. And as long as we determine their rent reasonable, which means we compare them to other non-assisted units, we have to grant them their rent increase request. And so we're seeing that happening. And so this additional funding will ensure that we can continue to serve the same number of families with these higher rental costs.
Thank you. Other questions? All right, ladies, thank you. I know there's no action here, but we look forward to your next update. And please do invite us all to the event in October. I would absolutely like to be there if at all possible.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting in a second? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. The next meeting we have this morning is the Eastmark Community